President Biden urged non-vaccinated Americans to get their shots, and he had a message for all those who are already vaccinated.
The CDC also helped clarify which outdoor activities are safer or less safe, depending on whether you've been vaccinated. The bottom line is clear. If you're vaccinated, you can do more things more safely, both outdoors as well as indoors.
And to incentivize young people in West Virginia, a $100 saving bond is going to be given to those who are ages 16 to 35 who receive a COVID vaccine. Democratic strategist Colin Rohero and co-host of the Realignment podcast, Marshall Kossoff, they join us now to discuss. Marshall, let me start with you. I thought this was very significant when we were picking topics this morning because it was become a culture war thing. Like Tucker had his famous segment where talking about telling people to, rip masks off their face and all of that. But the Biden team is just not giving into the quote unquote conspiracy of masks forever. They almost immediately, CDC along with Biden just came out and was like, yeah, you can walk around without a mask if you're vaccinated, all of that, get vaccinated so that everything can go back to normal quickly. What do you think that says about the political dynamic around the controversies around masking?
Yeah, I really love the way you frame this because it says a million different things. So one, the worst conspiracy that we've seen over the past year are a lot of folks, especially on the right and who are more libertarian, are talking about how government wants this power forever. And Joe Biden and, the Democrats and everyone really just want to do all this stuff. When actually it turns out that people were, for good reasons and for bad reasons, incredibly scared for the past year. And it took having a situation where you could just see the plain science on this, and the science is very clear. It's possible and more than safe to walk around if you're vaccinated with, as long as there aren't too many people there. So as long as there's a situation where we can address that, the politics had to move on it because the reality is it's almost summer, it's getting hot. People don't want to wear masks, and politicians like the Biden administration respond to that.
Yeah, Colin, I also think it's significant that he intentionally says you get vaccinated and you can do more things. I think that's a message that we've said on this show is really important because there is some core of the population, disproportionately young Republican men who feel like, why get vaccinated? It really doesn't matter that much. So affirmatively making the case that, look, you get this done and your life can be better, I think is an important message. Look, is it going to dramatically change things? No. But to have the President of the United States really making that case is significant.
Yeah, Crystal, I agree. And, first of all, can we start off by agreeing not to quote Tucker Carlson and anything that has to do with the relation of science to what people should do with masks is probably a bad idea generally. But I would say beyond that, look, the White House is both responding to politics and responding, I would say, in a Hippocratic Oath style, in that they are making sure that they are making recommendations that first do no harm and secondarily start to give people their sense of freedom back and their sense of being able to exist in the world after vaccination without so much concern, without so much fear. And once we get past that fear, I think you're going to see a general sentiment in the United States continue to tick upwards. And I think it'll have a really positive effect on his approval rating as we move into, more and more people who are vaccinated and more freedom without masks, both outside and inside. And so I think it's a good thing generally for the entirety of the population and for the Joe Biden administration specifically.
Marshall, let me ask you about Jim Justice's plan. I want to say he's been one of the best jobs in the country, no matter what you feel about him. An incredible job whenever it comes to vaccination. I believe he actually deserves a lot more props. I think this idea is a good one in that there's been a lot of fear amongst younger Republicans and more. They're like, I don't want to be forced to take the vaccine, and nor should you be. There's no forcible happening right now. But giving the carrot approach of, hey, look, you want a $100 savings bond? That's not life-changing amount of money, but it's something. And something is something to some people. It's an incentive structure, which I think is important and could become a blueprint for the country. What did you make of it generally?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the right approach when it comes to running these experiments, because we haven't faced a specific problem like that, because you have just the gap between the ages in terms of the harm of it, but you also have a deep lack of trust with this demographic in the medical experts and people who are focusing on that. So I applaud any efforts to really promote that. And I think the other thing that everyone should be thinking about, because I'm realizing for a lot of folks, this conversation might not make as much sense. So we're talking about, hey, we're now not required to wear masks outdoors. But, I'm from Oregon. I went back to Oregon a few months ago. And even in blue parts of the state where you don't have a single Trump voter within a 10-mile radius, you have people walking around unmasked. Well, I will tell you, in D.C. and places like New York, people do definitely in these blue parts of it still wear masks. So what we need to do is be just deeply empathetic towards everyone. And there are a lot of red state people who are going to roll their eyes at that. And there are people in blue states who are going to roll their eyes at that. But I think what we need to do here is be empathetic and just recognize that everyone just wants to get back to the way things were as close as they can. And the time for dunking on everyone and just trying to make these points about who's doing what and who is stupid and who's smart just doesn't help anybody.
Yes, I totally agree with that to the core of my being, Marshall. Colin, I also think that it's sort of amusing how Republicans keep trying to spin up, continue the culture war on mask wearing and coronavirus, and Biden and his team just keep sort of immediately deflating their balloon. I was thinking about the vaccine passport concerns, and they were just starting to get really worked up about that. And then the Biden administration's like, we're not doing that. So calm down. It's fine. We're very clearly not doing that. No hedging, no anything else. It's just immediately we're going to deflate that balloon. And I feel like it's the same thing here. I mean, I'm sorry I have to bring up Tucker again, but he just did this big monologue about if you see kids with masks, rip them off, and all this aggressive, now we're on the other side of judging people who feel more comfortable wearing masks. And Biden immediately comes out and deflates it. He's like, you don't wear a mask outside. You don't have to, and by the way, get vaccinated because you'll be able to go back to normal life. So they're just not giving them a lot of oxygen here for all of the culture war fights that they're trying to gin up.
Yeah, Crystal, I agree, and I think that's a really smart thing politically. I think in the past, you've had a lot of administrations on the Democratic side that have been less responsive to, kind of right-wing grasping, and that's really what a lot of this is. Tucker is grasping. I mean, if we look at our most recent, Biden's going to ban hamburger theory that I think, bounced around yesterday.
Great example.
It's really just kind of comical, and I think the Biden administration is doing a really good job responding when these things come out, because that's when you have to. Once these things come out, before they become the giant conspiracy theories, before they have the snowball effect of the right-wing media echo chamber, you got to kill them. Kill them immediately. Let them know this is what is actually really happening. And I think it's actually very helpful that we do hear from the president on these things himself, dispelling some of these myths, and not just in press conferences.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think he effectively neutered the entire controversy. Okay, guys, stick with us. We're going to be right back with Team Rising.